What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor. I'm powerless over life, but not my reaction over life. I created this YouTube channel to share my experience, my strength, my hope, and what I've been through in recovery to get me to where I'm at today. I would like to share it with y'all because I know how hard it is. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to feel alone. I know what it's like to have anxiety and resentment and anger and shame and guilt. I lived like that for 15 years. I get it. So hopefully this channel's for you. I want to talk about emotions, because I think that is a very important aspect of recovery, is learning how to regulate and manage our emotions in a healthy way without having to avoid it or cover it up with substances. With me, with using over 15 years, that is what my brain and body was used to. That was my main coping mechanism. It had been my whole life. Nobody taught me how to regulate my emotions. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, where there was only two emotions, anger and happiness. And when my people would get angry, they would talk very ugly. They would criticize me. They would shame me, blame, whatever. They would hurt me. And the reason is because they were hurting and they were not taught how to regulate their emotions. So it's not that they didn't want to, it's that they didn't know how to. They were comfortable with the way they were. Nothing ever happened to them that made them want to do better, because that is what their brain was programmed to do. And knowing that and me thinking of that has gave me comfort. It has gave me a sense of empowerment. It gave me a sense of freedom and relief that I am breaking my family dysfunction, that I have the ability to take an honest look at myself, to see my behaviors, actions, and attitudes so I can fix it. And that takes a lot of courage and a lot of honesty. And that is one piece of freedom that I get from this program, from these 12-step programs, to have the courage to be honest about who I have become and the things I've done to myself and others. That's why I speak so freely about 12-step programs, because 12-step programs started me off in my healing journey. It gave me the foundation I needed to dive deeper in my past when things arose in my head. It gave me a solid foundation, and that's what I was lacking, a solid foundation. I didn't grow up with structure. The life that addiction carries, the trauma it carries, the pain, the putting ourselves in harm's way, harming other people. I carried all of that shame and guilt and resentment. And that's what 12-step programs did. They allowed me to release those pains. And so I've been off my meds for about a year and a half. And the reason for me coming off my meds was because I was on so many different medications. I didn't know what was working and what wasn't. I was so spiritually and emotionally blocked from myself. I was completely numbed. So I was also depressed. While I was on depression medicine, I was anxious and having panic attacks while I was on benzos. So logically, I had to look at my motives for taking the psychiatric medications. And my motives were not pure. I wanted a way to escape. I wanted a way to not have to deal or learn how to regulate my emotions. And doing that several years dry on psychiatric medications, I was the worst I have ever been my entire life without 12-step programs. And all it took was 6 months in 12-step programs, willing to go to any length, willing to be honest, open-minded, and take an action when my brain didn't want to take action, for me to get complete relief. Some people it takes longer, but the people it takes longer are the people that aren't taking action, that aren't taking the suggestions. And this is neuroscience. This is scientifically proven. If you introduce the brain to whatever you're trying to learn all throughout the day, and you're constantly introducing it, your brain is absorbing this information. Your brain is absorbing this information. So it's basically science. If you have the willingness to want to change, all you have to do is introduce your brain to recovery and self-development work. That's what I basically did, and to surround yourself around people who have what you want, people who are going to love and accept you, who get addiction, who get emotional problems, who get mental health. Like, that solid support system is so important, and it's these little things that got me to where I'm at today, with helping me learn how to regulate my emotions. Like I mentioned, that type of house I grew up in, I was not taught how to regulate my emotions. And so I had a lot of unresolved issues, underlying issues within myself that went so many years without being addressed. And we're human beings. We are emotionally wired. That is what our emotions let us know that something ain't right, that something needs to be addressed. And for me, something I've learned in recovery is that, if I'm maintaining my emotional sobriety, which I'm doing everything these programs suggest, then I'm able to deal with my emotions in healthy ways. I'm able to handle whatever life throws at me. But I had to heal from my past before I got to this point. I had to take it easy on myself. And there, I believe, and I'll break emotions down in two parts, which for me is physical and also mental. Well, the mental part I have control over. But the physical part of the emotions that happen, I do not have control over. I am powerless over my emotions, but I am not powerless over my reaction to my emotions. I was a very impulsive person my entire life. And I started meditation about well over 6 months ago. And I started forcing myself to sit in silence and just be in silence, focus on my breath, lay however I wanted to. Nothing fancy, just my version of meditation, self-reflection. I really prefer to call it self-reflection because I know when people have said meditation to me, I think of somebody sitting there cross-legged, humming, but that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about meditation. I'm talking about self-reflection. And so it was so weird. I already had like a year and a half of these 12-step programs, so I added meditation and my version of prayer, which, people hear the word pray and they hear a lot of different interpretations depending on the type of religious or spiritual upbringing you have had. For me, I will define prayer, positive self-talk. I grew up, looking for a higher power outside of myself instead of within myself. And I had to learn to heal from my past in order to connect with myself. I believe that higher power is within all of us, within myself, within all life. There can be no life without it. Why and how? Who knows? I don't know, but I know I'm right now, right here in the present moment. And so 12-step programs helped me heal from my past, to learn to connect to myself. And when I started showing up for myself, when I started doing things that made me feel good about myself, surrounding myself around positive, honest people, the way I talk to myself, my core beliefs were you're not good enough, you're a piece of shit, and nobody wants you or loves you. And that would roll through my head. I would cry before these programs. I would cry for like 6 hours at a time, rocking back and forth with those core beliefs, just ruminating and racing through my head. Every time I would get upset like that, everything from my past that I had been burying would just rush through my head, like all at once. It was horrifying. It was so intense. And before, I used to use alcohol to cope with that. Well, I didn't have alcohol to cope with that. So here I was left to defend on my own. I had no tools. I didn't have a support system, and so when I got those things, it made life a lot easier for me. Now I don't cry for 6 hours at a time. When I start to feel that pressure built up in my chest, I cry. And it's like whatever power is out there, its hand is on my shoulder, but honestly, it's me. It's me comforting myself. I've learned to show up for myself the way nobody has ever showed up for me my whole life. I've learned to be the mother that I wanted growing up. I've learned to be that mother for my kids. I've learned to be that mother for myself, my own motivator, my own coach. All these things are important. My own teacher, my own researcher, my own advocate. Like I can be these things. I search for happiness and relief within substances and other people. I wanted everybody to like me and to accept me. I needed people to feel complete. I needed people to feel something. But really, all I needed was to learn how to connect to myself. And I think that is my best gift in recovery and in healing in general, is learning that, I don't need anybody because I've got myself. I can show up for myself, and it all started with changing that inner self-talk. And the affirmations thing, when I first started doing affirmations, I was angry and resentful. Like, it disgusted me. It made me feel icky. And I forced myself to do positive pep talks and encouragement talks in the mirror. I had to face myself to heal. I had to face myself, and I did that every morning. And then I started doing voice recording audios of like when I was in a good mood, the way I share in meetings. I share like that when it's just me. I share like that out loud. And I cannot tell you, that has helped me connect to myself, talking out loud to myself, showing up for myself, like I said, the way I wish people would show up for me. And see, the thing is that for me, I wanted people to show up for me, but even when people tried to show up for me, it wasn't enough for me. It's never enough for some reason. And it's because I was missing something inside. I was missing that connection with myself. And I truly believe that, you know, that saying, oh, well, you can't love somebody until you learn to love yourself. I used to get so angry at that. I'm like, I love this person more than I love myself. How dare you, you know? And I see it to be true because I could not treat people with respect and kindness until I learned to do that with myself. I would take out my anger and my pain on other people because I wanted people to feel what I was feeling. And so it all started with learning how to talk to myself nicely. And that positive inner talk. And see, it takes time, it takes repetition, it takes patience, it takes willingness, the ability to recognize I am not my brain. My brain tells me I'm not good enough. You know what I do? I say out loud, I am good enough. I am good enough. And how can I even expect to be good enough when I've done nothing in my life to make me feel good? If all I've ever done is hurt myself and hurt other people, then how the hell am I supposed to feel good enough about myself, right? That's insanity. The more good I started doing for myself, the more I started sticking up for my boundaries, not allowing people that were going to jeopardize my emotional sobriety, people who were going to love and support me and guide me into the direction that I wanted to be guided. And the way I talk to myself, it matters. It matters. And I'll do another video on some things that I've learned to help me with my emotions. But I'll tell you, the main thing is learning how to just recognize, hey, this is an emotion. I'm safe. It's okay, you know, and just allowing myself to feel that emotion without judging myself, criticizing myself, or shaming myself, or blaming myself. To just sit in silence and focus on my breath and comfort myself out loud with my inner talk. And that is what I do to comfort myself with the emotions. I go in the emotion and I don't have to run from them. I don't have to reject them. I embrace my emotions because my emotions are trying to tell me something. And it is okay to feel pain. It is okay to feel pain. It is okay to embrace the emotions, because the only way the emotions are going to get resolved is to face them. Running from them, covering them up with substances, you know, all these things, the emotions don't go away. I believe emotions are energy. How? I don't know. But I know when I cry, I feel better. When I go to the gym and I do a sauna and I'm pissed off before I go, or I'm hurt about something, I know that's going to make me feel better. I know these little things, going for a walk, talking out loud to myself, journaling, doing 12-step meetings when I get like that, taking action to trick my brain, my mental state of my emotions, to remind myself, hey, it's okay, this will pass, because emotions always pass. And I used to be the all or nothing person. I would think the world was ending when my emotions would come. It was all or nothing, and it was very dramatic. And, you know, I can pause now. I can sit with my emotions, you know, and I'm going to do another video on pause. I'm getting more, ideas for videos, and so I'm just doing this as I go along, you know, whatever's on my heart. And so I'm going to repeat this because it's very important that your brain continues to hear this information. Everything matters. The way you talk to yourself matters, and the way you talk to yourself is the way you're going to feel about yourself. And if you feel shitty about yourself, then you're going to feel shitty about life. So it all starts with the little things. And if anybody has any recommendations on videos, or, you know, you want to put a message in the chat on a question, whatever, I'm willing to answer. You know, so I hope you find the power within yourself that I have found within me, and that you heal from your past, because you deserve it and you're worth it.